Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Saturday Classics. It's been a while. Yes, it has. But we're here for this season. Last season, we were a little inconsistent. We may have taken a 6 or 7 week break, but that's all right. This season, we're here for the preseason. We're going to be here almost every week that we can. And we have a special guest today. Andrew covers on the sports coverage podcast, Garden State Sports. He's all over the place lately, did a lot with the World Cup. And just a co host that got me in the podcasting. Just great guy. Great guy. Andrew, how are we doing today?
Doing great. I'm excited for college football to be back. We saw a sneak peek of some NFL yesterday, but I'm really excited to not just be exclusively watching baseball, although I do love me some MLB.
Yeah, George Lombard's been playing great. And Haynes King masterclass yesterday. Let's
Yeah.
just talk about Haynes King masterclass. But we're gonna hop straight into it, starting with first make or break season. There's a lot of make or break seasons for a lot of teams, a lot of coaches, a lot of players for this season. And you start. Who's a make or break player, coach, team this season that you have?
Um, this one I think is pretty simple for me, and that's going to be Kalen DeBoer in Alabama because since DeBoer took over, he took over for Nick Saban. That's already a huge role to fill. And since then, I mean, he got knocked down in the Rose Bowl in a very embarrassing fashion last year. At least it was to the team that went on to win the national championship. But that game was an embarrassment, and he still has the talent on this roster year in and year out. Guys that are going to keep going to the NFL year after year, quarterbacks that have what it takes to succeed at the highest level. And so far, Kalen DeBoer hasn't been able to really tap into that as much as Nick Saban was with practically the same level of talent on his team for the decades before. And really, Kalen DeBoer now is in the hot seat. I was watching First Take yesterday. Stephen A. was talking about how Kalen DeBoer is really going to be in that hot seat coming into the season. And then as well, if you talk about his recruiting, uh, he hasn't necessarily had the same fire and the spirit to like go out and get him, like put everything on the guy that's going to win like Nick Saban did. Nick Saban is known as one of the best recruiters to hit the SEC for so many years. And I'm hoping the goal is that Kalen DeBoer will be able to grow into that role in the coming years, because otherwise he's going to be out soon when the SEC continues to run away without him.
Yeah, that's a great take, honestly. DeBoer wasn't even a coach that I had in mind. The first coach that I had in mind was Lincoln Riley in USC. If we're just going to talk about his first year with with USC, he takes the Heisman, Caleb Williams, and just an overall great team, Zach Branch, Jordan Addison, a bunch of guys, goes into the Cotton Bowl against Tulane and loses that game. Goes into the next 2 years with just basic bowl games, basic wins against Louisville, Texas A&M, lose last year to TCU. He has not had a great postseason track record, and from coming from where he came from in Oklahoma, where he's getting Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts to the college football playoffs every year, coming to USC, who arguably is one of the best recruiting teams out there. I think USC brings in top talent every year. They're a hot spot for a lot of teams. And they just haven't been winning. I think this year is a make or break year for them, but I think this year is going to be a good year for them. Though I covered it in my schedule review with Eli. If you saw that post over on Instagram, I said there would be a 10-2 team, a college football playoff team. I think this is the year, but on the off chance that it's not a year for him, I think Lincoln Riley is going to be out of a job at USC. My second coach that I had, and it hurts me to say this, that it's a make or break year, but Coach Prime, we're going to start needing some answers. We're going to start needing some wins. Colorado, they had their wonder year. They had their wonder year with Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders, LeJontay West. I can go on about that roster. They had their wonder year. They took a bad loss to BYU in that bowl game. Next year, they come in, stack the talent right back up. In my opinion, they had a great running back core, something they didn't have in a while. They had Caden Salter, who was prolific at Liberty. They just recruited Juju Lewis. Like, I thought they were going to have just as good of a year, and they didn't. They crashed hard. Their only conference win was against Iowa State, and it was disappointing to me. It was. They take the loss to Georgia Tech. A bunch of close losses done again to BYU, then to TCU, Arizona State, all just heartbreaking losses for me. And I was conflicted about what this year is gonna bring. We're gonna have a Juju Lewis starting. We have some great transfers coming in. We have Danny Scudero coming in, Cam Perry. We've reloaded well, but we're starting off at Georgia Tech this year. And if Georgia Tech's anything like they were last year, it's going to be another tough game. So those are my two make or break coaches. Playoff teams. Just who do you think are your playoff teams for this year in our 12-team college football playoff? Just some of the teams that you can think of.
Um, I'm thinking about some teams that what's going to be the teams from outside the Power Four that are going to make their way into the playoffs this year. I think that North Texas last year, what they were able to do, I don't know. I don't know exactly. I haven't paid attention too much to how much they lost, um, but I feel like they were kind of robbed a bit last year, and there's a chance that they could make it back in that sense. Uh, I would say that the SEC is going to be the most interesting one. I think this coming year for teams that maybe will make the at-large spots because you're going to have teams like Texas who are going to be at the top of the conference again, in my opinion, with Arch Manning now in his second season. You're going to have teams like Georgia that are always pushing forward. You're going to have teams like Tennessee that are always going to be pushing forward. But I'm looking to see if a team like Oklahoma can make their way back in, or
Yeah.
Kentucky, or a team like that, even Florida. Um, I really want to see another SEC team or even another non-traditional Big Ten team like we saw with Indiana last year push into this college football playoffs, maybe in one of those at-large spots and really wreak some havoc. Because the point of expanding to 12 teams is you get teams in there that maybe didn't deserve it entirely but can still put on a show, and I'm waiting to see for one of those teams to make it happen.
Conference that I'm looking at this year, honestly, is the Big 12. I think that the Big 12 is going to be a conference that has a lot of people to enter. Last year they were very competitive. Texas Tech, BYU was making a push. Utah was making a very early push. And I think a lot of teams have retooled this year. You mentioned North Texas. Sorry to tell you, but their coach and quarterback went over to Oklahoma State, Drew Mestemaker, and I forget the name of their coach, but they went over to Oklahoma State, retooling them. Iowa State was a very early front runner last year. Now their coach and all that personnel going over to Penn State, Iowa State losing a lot there. TCU losing Josh Hoover. Arizona, Noah Fafita, the make or break year. Baylor getting DJ Lagway, another make or break year for them. I think there's going to be a lot of emergence coming out of the Big 12 definitely this year. A team that I look at is Utah, very competitive last year. Um, had a lot of quarterback switch ups, I would say, a lot of quarterback switch ups. Then another team that I look at is Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham has the experience now to get to the college football playoffs. He did it in the first 12-team playoff. But he's lost Sam Levitt. He's lost his quarterback. He still has a lot of players coming in for them. And then finally, Kansas State coming in with a new coach, Avery Johnson, a guy I was high on last year, a guy that was a favorite of mine, coming back for this year. And those are the three teams from the Big 12. You mentioned the American as well, and the American is a very interesting conference as well. Um, a conference we saw a lot of emergence out of, not just Tulane, who made it, not just North Texas, but USF was shocking the world at the start of the season. Beating Boise State as bad as they did, beating Florida, competing with Miami the way that they did. All those guys went over to Auburn now, but I still think it's going to be a very interesting conference. Memphis is a team that was a little bit underwhelming last year. I think that they're going to find their way in this conference this year. Navy was a team that was really good for the past 2 years. I think they're gonna show up this year. ECU is a bit a very underrated team. I think they can show up this year. Temple potentially hasn't been a great team the past few years since the PJ Walker days, but I think personally,
Uh, I don't
no,
know
with
about
their
Temple.
new coach Casey Keeler, 5-7 last year. I think that it's a potential for them. They almost had they lost a lot of games on one possession late in the fourth quarter. Lost to Navy, lost to ECU. I think that they can turn it around pretty soon within the next 2 or 3 years. Um, Conference realignment.
Hmm.
Um, it's been very shaky. Obviously, we have the Pac-12 returning. Um, just thoughts on that,
I mean,
just the new
yeah.
Pac-12 is the Mountain West again.
Well, so the Mountain West, I think, did a great job bouncing back from the Pac-12 fallout, where you're adding teams like UTEP, Grand Canyon, Hawaii, and even North Dakota State. Like you're adding teams that people want to go watch. Like you want to see. You're always interested at what Hawaii is doing, and now, of course, they're going to have a ridiculous like. I don't know if you saw what their travel schedule is going to look like as of now, but it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then you're adding a new FCS team in North Dakota State. You're adding a team that's been good in the past, like UTEP. I personally think the Pac-12 isn't actually going to be that entertaining. I think
Yeah.
that they've basically just added the better half of the Mountain West teams, and you just create another Mountain West. This is still not a Power Five conference. They cannot re-enter themselves into that conversation with what has been done. And while you're adding Boise State, who's been good over the past couple of years as a result of stars that they've continuously picked up, same thing for Colorado State or even Utah State. Um, the programs that they're adding aren't going to enter themselves back into that conversation. So overall, I think Mountain West are actually could be the winners of this situation here with the new teams that they've been able to add. And the other things like Louisiana Tech to Sun Belt, I think that's great for them. Sacramento State to MAC, I think that's great for them as well. So overall, I think Pac-12 are still the losers.
Yeah. I think just having two Mountain Wests now is interesting. I think it does very well for Boise State. I think they're the winners out of all this. Pac-12 is not what it used to be. I think it's going to be a very long time before they get back to that level. But still, I think they end up the winners. They end up in a better track record of a conference. That's probably schedule boost for them. The discourse of Boise State is always they face one good team at the start of the year. The rest of the year they cupcake through their schedule and then they waltz into the college football playoff. They waltz to a 10-2 and 11-1, thinking that, and everybody thinks that they're a top team. When in reality, they only played one team that was ranked in the top 25. I think this could be a schedule boost for them, a chance for them to prove themselves. Um, and then the FCS teams coming in, I really like a lot. I like Sacramento State. I like what they've done just recruiting wise. They got Jaden Rashada playing for them this year, a guy that wasn't all that he was made up to be at Georgia and the other places he was. I think this is his chance to prove himself. And North Dakota State's just a team that since the Carson Wentz stage, everybody's been wanting them to be at an FBS level and wanting them to compete. I remember in the wonder year of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, that first game against North Dakota State was a great game. Travis Hunter had 3 touchdowns, I believe, and the one to seal it. North Dakota State had a good grip on that game, so I think they're going to be very competitive um, going into this year. Getting into some players though. First thing we're going to start it with Heisman favorites. I have mine. I've had mine for a long time. I just want to hear what yours is first.
I have two picks. One is, I think, more obvious. One is one that maybe I don't know. Maybe I could just be throwing one out there. First one, Malachi Tony. I think
Okay.
that Miami is going to grow, and he is going to continue to grow into an even better player. He was already first in receptions, fifth in yards last season. He's going into his junior year now. Like this is a guy that put on a show at the national level every single game last year, and I think that he is only going to continue to improve with Miami. And then one that's a little more, I would say, out there. Everyone's talking about Texas and Arch Manning and if he's going to live up to the hype. I think someone that's going to could potentially overshadow him is wide receiver Ryan Wingo. He
Okay.
already had 834 yards on the season last year and 7 touchdowns, and he's going to be going into his senior season. But if you have Arch Manning playing as a strong quarterback day in and day out next season, there's a chance that these wide receivers could really put on a show. And I think that Texas is going to be one of the strongest teams in the country going into next year.
Yeah, I also have two guys in mind. The first guy is a guy that I've had my eyes on since he was a freshman, and I think this is his year. Dante Moore is definitely my favorite for Heisman this year. Coming back, after a shaky start at UCLA, sitting behind Dylan Gabriel for a year, and then leading Oregon to a great record last year. Losing to the eventual champions Indiana. I think that this is his year. I think that this is just Oregon's year overall. Dan Lanning coming in this year. Another coach who I think is less of a make or break year, but still this is a prove it year. A year to see if you can do it. You retooled really well. You have a lot of healthy guys. All the guys you lost were to the draft. Not a lot of transfer portal leaves and like some good transfer portal pickups. I think this is the year that Dante Moore is going to prove himself. And then another guy, Kawan Lacey, a guy that was electric at Ole Miss last year. Everybody had their attention on Trinidad, D2 transfer, catchy name, throwing dimes all over the place. But Kawan Lacey was one of the bigger playmakers last year, and they did lose a lot of fire in their receiving game. Caden Lee transferred. They lost a lot of receivers in the draft. I don't know if their passing is going to be as good, but Kawan Lacey is an absolute playmaker. He was amazing in the game against Georgia, and I think this is going to be a good make or break year for him. But just some guys that you notice in the transfer portal, getting back to the transfer portal, just impact transfers. I'll start first. Coy Perrick to Oregon is a move that I love for them. Um, just Coy Perrick's been an amazing safety overall, and you know how Oregon does with their safeties, having Dylan Thieneman last year, who became a first round pick after going to Purdue. This is kind of becoming the pipeline of smaller Big Ten safeties going to Oregon and shining. I think that's going to be the exact same thing. For Coy Perrick this year. And another guy, Cam Coleman, receiver from Auburn. Auburn hasn't been what they've been in the past lately. Cam Coleman was a top receiver coming out of high school, played well, but now going to Texas, like you said with Arch Manning, they're going to be one of the most well-equipped teams in the country. Having Ryan Wingo, having Arch Manning, adding Cam Coleman on the other side, I think Texas is a team that's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I have one. Maybe this is a bit of an obvious one, but I talked about Tony earlier, and the guy that's going to be helping him potentially achieve Heisman status is Darian Mensah. I mean, first of all, what he was able to do in the ACC last year with a Duke team that altogether usually they aren't that impressive, but they have managed to produce a player like Mensah who was one of already the best quarterbacks in the league, and now you're surrounding him with a cast of a great running back room, a great wide receiver room, overall an amazing offense and a team that went to the national championship last year. I think that he's going to be one of the strongest quarterbacks in the country. I think that he is easily going to be able to, with the talent that's returning to Miami, lead them back to a national championship game. And overall, like, he is just an incredible, incredible pickup for the Hurricanes, especially when they're working on bouncing back and getting right back to where they were last year.
Yeah, another guy too. You mentioned North Texas earlier. Going to go back to them. Drew Mestamaker to Oklahoma State. Last year led all of college football in passing yards. Just an amazing thing to think of, a guy that didn't even play much high school football. Started his first ever college football game in a bowl game for North Texas and won it for them. Now coming in last year, shocking the world, throwing the ball all over the place for the Mean Green. Coming into Oklahoma State, better conference, same coach, retooled team. I think that he has the potential to have a great year. Definitely for him. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
finally, to wrap up this quick episode, just your overall national champion this year. Who do you see as your national champion in this 12-team playoff?
Yeah, so national champion, like I said, I think Miami is going to be right back there in the hunt, and but I don't know if they're necessarily going to win it. I would say the winner for me is going to be between Oregon, because I mean, you talked about what their quarterback situation is like. They have two like Big Ten ready quarterbacks in their room right now. You mentioned, of course, Dante, but also you've Raiola still sitting as the backup in Eugene. So either Oregon or, and this is the big if, I think. I think that Texas is the strongest team in the SEC on paper going into next season, but I think that Arch Manning is still unproven to a point where there is a chance that he doesn't necessarily live up to the hype. I think he has the talent around him. I think Texas has done a good job of being able to build that up. So I think it's between, for me, Texas or Oregon, but Texas is kind of more of a iffy one depending on how Arch plays next season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. My national champion is Oregon, and it's been Oregon from the start of the season. Honestly, just all the impact players that they have. Take it away from Dan Lanning, who's a great coach in himself. Take it away from Dante Moore, who is my Heisman favorite. Coy Perrick, the transfer. Just the guys that they're bringing back. Bringing back Mateo Uyunglele, amazing edge for them, has been amazing for the past few years. Brandon Finney, who played amazing in the College football playoffs last year, showed out against Texas Tech with, I believe, 2 interceptions in that game. Their backfield, bringing back Jordan Davison and Dier Hill Jr. Dier Hill Jr. was amazing last year. Bear Alexander returning for Oregon. Devin Jackson, an amazing linebacker for them. DeCorian Moore, a receiver that I was high on coming out of high school going into Oregon, having another great year. And then Evan Stewart, a guy that we didn't hear a lot from last year because he was injured all season, but that year with Dylan Gabe, he was the number one guy. He was amazing. He's confirmed healthy to come back this year. Just take all these weapons, put them together, and I believe is a weakened Big Ten.
Yeah, I
Michigan
agree with
is
that. Yeah.
Michigan is down. Ohio State bringing back, losing a lot of their defense. What made them so special. I think Oregon's going to rise to the top. Indiana's not going to be as good as they were last year. They're going to be an amazing team, I believe. But losing a lot of guys, losing all the guys that you do, losing Fernando Mendoza, losing Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper Jr., D'Angelo Ponds, Pat Coogan, all the guys that were so important for you in the playoffs. And now you're going in this year retooled. I don't think they're going to be as good as they are, but Oregon bringing almost everybody back, I think it's going to be a great year for them. But that just about wraps up this preseason preview of college football here on Saturday Classic. We'll come back to you for week 1, UNC, TCU, starting it off in Ireland. All these great games coming up. We'll see you